Hello? Last time I explained about relationships and introduced a few models that connect relationships. I talked about things like buddy clubs, personal networking, and also introduced the concept of group networking. If last time I explained why we do group networking, today I'd like to take some time to introduce a real example of group networking that we're actually running, the young adult group networking. This group networking started in October 2020. When the parents of 5 young adults in their 20s, including my own child, began meeting weekly or bi-weekly to discuss how we would proceed. We officially launched in January 2021. And now that it's November 2024, it's already been almost 4 years. We've been saying among ourselves that we're quite satisfied with how things have gone. Still, today, we'd like to take some time to hear various stories from over the years by inviting Ms. Shin, our coordinator, who has put in a lot of effort since the very beginning to ensure this group networking ran smoothly. In addition, the person sitting to my right is the mother of one of our friends participating in this network. And we'd also like to hear her perspective as a parent and share her experiences with us. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. Last time, when I explained the purpose of group networking, I mentioned that in the end, it's because it's generally not easy for our friends to make friends. So it would be good for these 5 friends to keep meeting and maintaining their friendships together. But it would be even better if there were a coordinator to lead them. So after much effort, we managed to find you, Mr. Shin, and asked for your help. The first thing I want to ask is, you probably heard about this for the first time, about this kind of model. So before you started, I'm curious how you felt when you first heard about it.
When I first heard about it, I thought the idea was really fresh and so new, so I felt a great sense of anticipation above all else. A lot of ideas about what we could do came to mind right away, and as I started to wonder how far this group could go, I found myself feeling really excited and even envisioning a bit of a future for it.
It's already been almost 4 years now, hasn't it?
Yes.
You started out with that kind of mindset, but your thoughts now might be a bit different from when you first began. After actually starting, what kinds of thoughts have you had?
First of all, right after we started, one of the difficulties was that although we had a lot of ideas at the beginning, we launched right in the middle of the pandemic, so we were limited to doing everything online. There was that physical limitation from the very start. Then, as the pandemic gradually eased, we were definitely able to start meeting friends in person and going outside, doing various activities. Through that, we were able to gradually turn the visions and dreams we had into reality. Now, after about 3 or 4 years, the thoughts I have now are definitely different from back then. I'll talk more about that later. One clear difference is that the differences in my friends' thoughts, talents, and interests have become more of a challenge than I initially expected. So I'm now coming up with new ways to adapt to and shape these differences, gradually changing and leading things forward.
I'd like to ask Mother the same question. When you first heard about this, before it started, when you were approached with the suggestion, what were your thoughts?
Yes, well, although my children have always had a need for friends, they have always found it difficult to form lasting friendships or make close friends. So throughout their school years, I was really glad to hear about this.
Once it actually started, did things go in the direction you were hoping for?
Actually, I think it turned out even better than I expected. From my perspective, I thought it would just be about meeting up, spending some time together, and then when it was over, that would be it. Or that the kids would just join in because their parents set it up for them. But as time went on, I saw that the kids started helping each other in their own ways, exchanging information, and even inviting each other to personal events. Seeing all of this, I realized that a real social life was forming, and I felt so happy and grateful for that.
You just briefly mentioned what kind of programs you do, but could you explain simply how you usually build relationships with the kids, what kinds of activities you do, and how those are carried out?
Yes, in our group, and it's called Blue Rangers.
And the slogan was actually created by our kids themselves, right?
Yes, when the kids first got together, they tried to find something they all had in common, and they discovered that everyone liked the color blue, so they came up with the name Blue Rangers. We meet once a week do activities together, share with each other, and always go out to eat together. We also share our individual interests, and while living in the Vancouver area, we enjoy seasonal activities or trendy things that are popular at the time. By spending time together like this, we build our friendships.
My child also participates, so I get to see what they do, but personally, I really enjoyed being able to take part in various activities around Vancouver that we normally wouldn't have the chance to experience. What aspects stood out to you or felt special as a parent?
First of all, Ms. Shin prepared such a wide variety of things for us. So I got to see many activities in Vancouver that I didn't even know about. In fact, I even went to some of those places myself separately after seeing them. It really showed me what kinds of things are happening in this community. The kids enjoy them on their own, but it also makes you realize, oh, so these kinds of things exist in the world. And you realize that other people come to these things as well. It's really about learning more about the world. Their own horizons are expanding. So I was really amazed by that diversity. And since parents can't find all these things themselves, it was so great to have an expert take care of everything like this.
Overall, we've explained what kinds of activities we did, but what stands out to you the most or left the biggest impression? Are there any activities that were particularly memorable, either from your perspective as a teacher or for the students? If you have any episodes or stories like that, could you share them with us?
Yes, there are several things that stand out, but first of all, every year we go on a 2-night, 3-day, or 1-night, 2-day trip at least once. The most memorable trip was probably the one we took to Edmonton. Maybe it's because it was the first time the students traveled by plane on their own, or maybe because we went somewhere far enough that parents couldn't just come right away, and we spent time together on our own. That's why that trip stands out the most in my memory. Another thing all of our friends have in common is that they're all talented in art. Last winter, we went to make pottery together, and I remember that all of my friends were really good at it, while I was the one who lagged behind the most. So, yes, every week is a lot of fun, but there are also those special memories like that.
When you went to Edmonton and such, it must have been a new experience for the friends who participated, to go without their parents, traveling separately. Wasn't it difficult to handle things like getting on and off the plane, buying tickets, and so on?
Yes, but since all my friends are able to communicate, there weren't any major difficulties. However, as someone who had to take on more personal responsibility, I definitely felt a lot more nervous. For the kids, though, it was actually more rewarding because I could see how excited they were about the experience.
If I may ask the same question as from a parent's perspective, is there anything in particular that stands out to you or any memorable episode that still lingers in your mind?
This might sound a bit self-centered, but for my daughter, there were activities she wanted to try with friends but couldn't because she didn't have anyone to do them with. I like horse riding and archery, but when those kinds of activities were included in the program, I was truly delighted. You're finally doing what you love together with your friends. That made me really happy, and even on her birthday, we would let her pick the movie she wanted to watch, and her friends would always watch that movie with her. And when another friend wanted to do something, everyone would do that together as well. Of course, it can't always be like that, but whenever my child's interests and favorite things became the main focus and she was at the center of attention when she became the main character, I think those moments really helped build her self-esteem. As a mother, there are things I simply can't do for her. I can't just bring her friends to her, and going somewhere with me is different from going with friends. So, seeing her able to do the things she wished for together with her friends made me feel so proud.
Actually, when we first came up with the idea, I personally thought more about connecting our friends with disabilities to their non-disabled peers. But during the planning process, we decided not to focus too much on connecting them with non-disabled friends, and instead, it would be better to help our friends maintain good relationships among themselves. That's how we got started. Now that you've tried it, do you feel that this is enough as it is, or do you ever think it's a bit lacking and that it might have been better if you had connected them with non-disabled friends as well?
It's true that our friends definitely have a great deal of interest in their non-disabled peers, and this is something we often notice. While doing this, I did feel some difficulties because these friends have autistic tendencies, so their perspective on relationships is somewhat limited. Non-disabled friends who understand autism can participate together, but I think it would be difficult for those who don't have that understanding to join in. In that sense, the challenges that arise from this overlap with the fact that building relationships and making friends was my top priority for these kids. But the process of reaching that goal has been slower than I expected. And at times, as a coordinator, I definitely faced some difficulties because of that. So in my opinion, the priority should be for these kids to first build relationships among themselves. And when their non-disabled friends with whom they already have relationships join in, I see that other kids also start to take more interest and get to know them. Watching this, I think that in the future, there is potential for further expansion in this way.
The reason I'm actually bringing this up is because we have things like the Buddy Club, and we also talk about personal networking and group networking. The concept of personal networking is basically about connecting non-disabled friends around our friends with disabilities. As for group networking, it would be great if it worked that way, but since that's not easy, at the very least, we want our kids to maintain good relationships among themselves, and from there hopefully develop further and build relationships with non-disabled friends as well. And also, on a personal level, everyone manages their own lives in their own way. That's why I wanted to explain the difference and ask the question. Plus, among the parents watching this video, there's a good chance that some may think a friend must absolutely be a non-disabled friend. However, we wanted to actually experience for ourselves and also verify through this program whether friends at similar levels can truly maintain those relationships. Now that 4 years have passed, I think it's fair to say that there is potential in this area. Is there anything else you'd like to share or discuss about this, ma'am? Any different thoughts or comments?
Yes, personally, I think it's not easy to maintain continuous and long-term relationships with typical friends. Everyone probably does what they can, whether it's with their family or on their own. But anyway, I'm sure there have been challenges in working together as a group of 5. I haven't been directly involved, but still, when Mr. Shin was leading, I felt that was enough, even as things are now. And honestly, seeing them build their own relationships in their own way is really nice to see.
Yes. Actually, while our kids do meet up with each other, in many cases, the whole families get together as well. Our parents also meet together. At first, whenever it was one of our kids' birthdays, the families would get together. And then we thought maybe just the kids should meet separately. But actually, the kids said they liked it better when all the parents joined in to celebrate the birthdays together. So even now, the 5 of us friends in our families still get together to celebrate, and we have those opportunities to congratulate each other. From your perspective, watching from the side, what do you think about the role of the parents or these kinds of relationships as a coordinator?
I think the role of the family is extremely important. I believe that the main reason this has been able to continue for 4 years is because the relationships with the parents have been good. The parents have respected each other and shared the same intentions and hopes, which is why I think this could be sustained. Of course, the relationships among our friends are important too, but even though the parents may have different feelings, if those feelings can't fully come together, there could be disappointment as parents. Since this is a group, if what each person wants is different, it would have been hard to keep going. Thankfully, our parents have been looking in the same direction, communicating together and supporting us. And now this is not just a relationship among friends, but has become a relationship among families. That's why, even though we don't use it often, our Instagram name is also Blue Rangers Family. In that sense, I think the role of families is extremely important.
You as a mother have also met together with the other families, right? How does that feel for you?
For me as well, while Blue Rangers is definitely a strong support group, for the kids, I also think the network among the parents is very important. Of course, while the parents naturally came together because of the children's needs, this is also the parents' responsibility. Helping the kids make friends and have a good social life is part of what we do as parents. By cooperating with each other, just being together as families, there are moments when we really connect and understand each other instantly, almost without words. So it really gave me a lot of strength and was very helpful to me. Emotionally, it was a great support. And whenever we needed information, we could always ask each other, share what we knew, and help out. So I truly believe that just as much as it is for our children. These gatherings are really important for the parents as well. Since this is something we have to do for the long haul, I think it's especially important.
As we've been talking so far, it might seem like we're only saying good things and just listing the advantages, almost like we're promoting something, but please keep in mind that we're having this conversation without any script. I'm just asking questions and we're answering as we go. But of course, nothing can be 100% perfect, and not everything can be good for everyone. So as you've been doing this, were there any things that you found a bit disappointing or lacking? If so, could you share some of those with us?
Yes. Well, in terms of logistics, since we all live in different areas, it's not easy to coordinate the schedules of all 5 members. So I think that's a bit of a physical challenge. So a lot of events are held on weekends, but some of us, including myself, are busy on weekends, while others are more free. Because of these differences, we've actually had to miss some events due to these logistical issues, and that's something I find a bit disappointing. As I mentioned earlier, first of all, each child has different interests, and there are also challenges in accepting the differences of friends with autism. Over the 4 years of running this group, I've had to come to terms with the gap between my initial personal ambitions and the slower progress in reality, and I've had to adjust and adapt. In the beginning, that process was quite difficult, but now I think we're moving forward in a way that fits those circumstances. Should we take a long-term perspective and move forward slowly? Yes, I think it makes me reflect on that once again.
That might be a bit disappointing, but our kids must have experienced conflicts that they normally wouldn't have, right? So have there been processes where you accept those conflicts and work through them as well?
There definitely are. Since the kids all have different interests, there are certainly questions about why they have to participate in something. And because their personalities are different, there are times when they have to wait for one another. In some areas they've improved, but in others, I think there's still a way to go.
What aspects did you find a bit lacking?
If I had to mention something lacking, well, honestly, I don't think I was able to expect that much in the first place. I think I made some suggestions during our parent meetings, like maybe doing something a bit different, or for the next step, having the kids read books and discuss them together. I remember suggesting things like that. Through this gathering, I came to understand the limits of what the children can do together. Not in a negative sense, but in terms of how far we can go as a group, and how individual needs might be met in other ways. I feel like I learned a bit about those aspects. Yes, there are needs that my child has, but I've learned that this one group can't fulfill all of them. So rather than feeling disappointed, it's more about just coming to understand that. I think that's something I experienced.
Strengths aren't always entirely good, and weaknesses aren't always entirely bad. Sometimes, even in difficult situations, we learn something new, and when things are going well, there are times when we get tired too. Going through these processes, our children are experiencing challenges and difficulties they wouldn't have faced if this didn't exist. In fact, I don't think going through these things is necessarily a bad thing.
Yes, so anything that can happen when people gather together can also happen in groups kids meet.
Exactly.
Like, I don't like that part about them. And I feel bad when he says something like that. Just as we experience these things, our kids naturally do too. And in fact, because these things happen, they can learn how to resolve them. If we're not careful, kids can end up living in a kind of vacuum, being overly protected within the family. But actually, by bumping into each other and experiencing these things, they can learn from them. Even if it's not a perfect solution, I think that's meaningful.
Yes.
I also think it's a form of learning for parents to watch their children struggle a bit and endure it together with them.
As we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to say to other families or parents?
I think it's really great when like-minded families come together to start something like this. And as you mentioned earlier, friends aren't just typical peers. In a way, true friends are those with whom you can form an equal relationship. So rather than just receiving one-sided help, I think it's important to seek out opportunities to build real relationships, whether that's with non-disabled friends or friends with other disabilities. What matters is forming those connections together, and that could be in a group of 5, a larger group, or even a smaller one. But because relationships are so important, I think if there are opportunities to build relationships with family or on a personal level, it's definitely worth pursuing them.
Lastly, is there anything you'd like to share with other parents?
Yes, I am so grateful for Blue Rangers, and my child also cherishes it and feels very happy about it. Honestly, I don't think it's easy for parents to create something like this themselves. In fact, CEO Libo-san has put in a tremendous amount of effort and played a role almost like a midwife, so I am very grateful to him. I'd like to take this opportunity to say to other parents as well, if you ever get the chance or have the thought, don't overthink it, just focus on one simple, most important lead, and I encourage you to try it together.
Yes, actually, although it's been 4 years for us, when we first started, we wondered if this would really work, and we approached it as a pilot. But the fact that it's lasted 4 years in itself shows the results of this program, and since it will continue in the future as well. But as you mentioned earlier, forming this kind of group isn't easy. However, since a group is something you can't do alone without others, rather than staying by yourself, I encourage you to keep seeking out other parents around you who share similar thoughts. Also, since I'm in the center now, I don't know anyone. But if you want to try something like this, just let us know. Once we have a list of people like that, we can suggest, how about getting together sometime when the opportunity arises? It doesn't have to be 5 or 6 people. 2 is fine, 3 is fine, and as you keep going, the group can gradually grow. The most important thing is to think, I need this. Or if you feel, we need this, this would be helpful for us, then please reach out to me, first so I can build up that list as much as possible. So we've had a long conversation today. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Once again, I want to thank Ms. Shin Suwon for all her efforts in maintaining this group for such a long time and for fostering great relationships and programs. I also want to express my gratitude to all the friends who participated, as well as to all the parents. And with that, I will conclude today's group networking. Introduction. Thank you for watching. Until now.